I have a rendezvous with death. We'll preserve the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years.
No fear. No political correctness. No wokeism. You're listening to Underground USA.
Thanks for downloading, listening, and sharing. My name is Frank Salvato. You can find all we do at undergroundusa.com. It never, ever fails, ever. Democrat deep staters always telegraph their deeds, transposing them onto their opposition. It's been happening since the days of Woodrow Wilson, and it continues to this day. Today's uniparty deep state tool is a frequent flyer, Dick Durbin, a Democrat senator from Illinois. This Chicago-machine-anointed partisan hack has demonstrated his partisanship almost every second of his career, and his latest remarks don't deviate from his far-left fealty. In response to President-elect Trump's nomination of Kash Patel to head the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Durbin issued an infantile protest full of name-calling and "it's not fair" whining, fully unbecoming of someone seated in the highest prestigious legislative body on the planet.
President Biden kept Director Wray in office because the FBI is supposed to be insulated from partisanship. Now the president-elect wants to replace his own appointee with an unqualified loyalist. The Senate should reject this unprecedented effort to weaponize the FBI for the campaign of retribution that Donald Trump has promised.
What? There's so much wrong with that statement, it's hard to know where to begin. But let's take it from the top, shall we? Durbin's insistence that Patel shouldn't be seated because President Biden kept Wray in place is an imbecilic notion. Under Wray, the FBI has been used in numerous ways to affect the political persecution of Americans. The FBI was found to have labeled parents speaking at school board meetings as potential domestic terrorists. This stemmed from a memo issued by the National School Boards Association in 2021, which served as an attempt to categorize outspoken parents as threats. The FBI response involved investigating these parents over their legitimate concerns about how the school districts were treating and educating their children. In 2023, a subpoenaed document from the FBI's Richmond field office revealed coordination with multiple field offices to produce a memo targeting traditional Catholics as domestic terrorists. This memo was later withdrawn, but the incident exposed the FBI's religious profiling and political bias. The FBI under Wray has targeted agents based on their political beliefs, particularly those with conservative views or military backgrounds. This includes claims of harassment and retaliation against whistleblowers who spoke out against political biases within the agency. The FBI has also been called on the carpet for not only not aggressively pursuing investigations into Hunter Biden, suggesting a protective stance towards political figures aligned with the Democrat Party, but also covering up the facts surrounding what was on his laptop, couching it all as an exercise in Russian skullduggery. Then we have the SWAT raid on former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence in 2022, where we now know the FBI was being used as a political tool against Trump and his 2024 election campaign. And lastly, for our purposes here, we now know the FBI worked with social media companies to suppress information, particularly around the federal government's COVID disinformation campaign and the Hunter Biden laptop story before the 2020 election. By Durbin's ethical standards, Trump should leave Wray in his position. Well, just because Biden did, ignoring the indisputable fact, that under Christopher Wray, the FBI has been corrupted and politicized almost beyond repair. Not only has Ray failed in his sworn oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and bear true faith and allegiance to the same, he allowed partisan ideologues to rise to positions of power that allowed them to thwart investigations, hobble the search for truth and justice, and use the power of the FBI and its sacred public trust to benefit political ideologues. Ray is a failed FBI director and rightfully deserves to be fired for his dereliction of duty, if not scrutinized for true acts of insurrection and sedition. But back to Durbin and his idiotic statement. Durbin infers that Trump appointing an unqualified loyalist is ludicrous in both uses of the words. First, why would any president, Trump, Biden, Obama, any of them, appoint someone who wasn't loyal to their agenda? The idea is psychotic on its face. In fact, its absurdity is self-evident to those with an IQ over that of a grape. But unqualified? Dick Durbin dares to use the term unqualified in the same sentence as the name Kash Patel? Okay, quickly, because it would take hours to fully explain why Patel is more than qualified to be a reformative FBI director in the Trump administration. Patel holds a Juris Doctor from Pace University School of Law and has a certificate in international law from the University of College London. He worked as a federal prosecutor within the Justice Department, focusing on national security cases, which gives him direct experience in law enforcement related to federal crimes. Patel served as a senior director for counterterrorism at the National Security Council during Trump's first term. He was the principal deputy to the acting director of national intelligence, Richard Grenell, in 2020. He served as chief of staff to acting Secretary of Defense, Christopher Miller, where he was involved in significant policy decisions and had oversight relevant to managing the FBI's operations. Patel worked as a senior counsel for the House Intelligence Committee under Representative Devin Nunes, where he was involved in investigations related to national security, including the Russia investigation into Trump's campaign, exposing the Russia hoax. This role gave him insight into the intersection of politics, law, and intelligence. In addition to those qualifications, Mr. Durbin, Patel has been a vocal supporter of Trump, often echoing Trump's views on the deep state and the need for reform within the federal agencies like the FBI. So far from being an unqualified loyalist, Patel's loyalty and alignment with Trump's political objectives, along with each milestone of his career, are significant qualifications for the role, given Mr. Trump's stated goal to reshape the FBI into the organization that it once was, a federal law enforcement agency that serves the people rather than the politicians. But then, that's why Dickie Durbin, the twit political hack from the glow-in-the-dark cobalt blue state of Illinois, stands against Patel's nomination. In cleaning out the sewer that is the deep state, Durbin's malfeasance might come into light, and, well, a corrupt Illinois politician can't be having any of that, now can he? As the flushing of the D.C. swamp begins under Trump 2.0, get ready for an immense amount of pushback from deep state uniparty assholes like Dick Durbin. They will not go quietly into the night. And that's why it's so incredibly important to keep the pressure on. And as a pre-postscript to it all, if the far-left Democrats and deep state uniparty douchebags were okay with stuffing appointments like Rachel Levin and Sam Brinton down our throats during the Biden-Harris administration, they shouldn't have a damn thing to say about any of Donald Trump's appointments. When we come back, our segment on America's Third Watch, broadcast nationally for our flagship station WGUL AM 930 and FM 93.7 in Tampa, Florida.
You're listening to Underground USA. Our federal government has been co-opted by the globalist sycophants of the deep state bureaucracy. At every turn, this bureaucracy expands its power over both the American people and the states in which they live. The framers knew corruptible men would one day bastardize their elected authorities and attempt to centralize government in Washington, D.C. That's why they gave us the 9th and 10th Amendments. That's why they left standing the tool of nullification. In his book, Nullification, The Case for Decentralizing the Federal Government, Frank Salvato lays out how states can claw back their constitutionally mandated powers from the overreach of the federal government, doing so in a manner that prevents a second bloody civil war. Get your copy of Nullification, The Case for Decentralizing the Federal Government. Available on Amazon.com in Kindle form and paperback.
News, insight, passion. AM 930, The Answer.
Obviously, I thought the lead story on today's program was going to be talking about Kash Patel, which we will talk about, but obviously, what do you think? What's your take on the Hunter Biden pardon?
Well, it's par for the course, isn't it? Not only for the Biden administration, but for any Democrat president in the last 3 Democratic administrations. You saw Bill Clinton pardon terrorists. You saw Barack Obama pardon terrorists. And now you see Joe Biden pardoning. Just because it's his son doesn't mean it's not an operative. Somebody who is obviously guilty because he pled guilty on the tax charges. But it's this block in a system that has now become completely rigged to a political means. This was part of the deal going forward. And I bet that when you rewind the tape and sit in that room when Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are sitting in the Oval talking to Joe and Jill Biden about, we can't have you running for president again, Joe, that this was part of the deal. We won't bark about this if you pardon Hunter and make it this all expansive, broad pardon that kind of puts up roadblocks to everything that has to do with the entire Biden crime syndicate family.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we can make a deal on that. That's why you haven't heard Jill Biden, griping too much about getting screwed in the 2024 election and not being her husband not being the nominee. Her husband not being the nominee.
Mm-hmm. Well, exactly. Yeah. There's so much going on, and one would think at some point some of the stuff will come out anyway. They won't be able to prosecute Hunter Biden for any of that, obviously. But this is, again, I'm right there with you, Frank. This is about stopping all these other of ways of getting to the Biden crime family, and to have this breadth of the pardon over the last 10 years for stuff known and unknown. The only real historical precedent for this, or not precedent, but comparison for this, they're talking about is the pardon of Richard Nixon, which was also pretty broad as well. In other words, it wasn't just for this or that.
But that was a deal where the country made out okay.
Right. Oh, I agree. Yeah. Different motivations.
Yeah. The country was the benefit of that. The only beneficiary of this is the Biden family.
Right.
So the corruption has come full circle. The grift is complete, and they're getting away with it.
Yep, they are. Now, if stuff comes out over time, let's say, because there will be more stuff exposed, especially if there's the real reform that goes on at the FBI, the DOJ, for example, that's going to be harmful to the Democrat Party as a brand. One would wonder how much more harm it could really take, because it's got a lot of harm to begin with right now.
Well, and it would expose the people who helped the Bidens execute the grift. And this just goes to show you that loyalty isn't a word in the Biden playbook, because I guarantee you, information that comes out that implicates something in something that the Biden family has been exonerated from through this pardon, these people are going to be thrown under the bus. And the Bidens won't care. Because it was never about service to the country in his 50-year career. It was all about what's best for the Bidens. How do we manipulate Joe's position to make money for us? And I mean, that has already started coming out with all the deals that happened in China and Ukraine. But now all the people who weren't covered by this pardon, namely anybody but Hunter, you know, you don't think they're vulnerable? They're going to love to come forward and say, I'll give evidence now. But with the new Justice Department, no one's going to care. And they're going to say, well, we've got some nice parting gift bracelets for you.
You know, we were talking about the Hunter Biden pardon, but we've also got, of course, the other, what was thought to be the big story before everything happened on Sunday, and that is Donald Trump saying he wants Kash Patel to become the FBI director. Now, there's a couple of wrinkles here because the term for the FBI director continues, although he can be fired. What do you see happening with this, and what do you think of Donald Trump's pick?
Well, the pick, Donald Trump's pick, is a subject of today's feature over at undergroundusa.com.
Well,
I think it's a great pick. Yes, he can fire Christopher Wray, and Christopher Wray should rightly be fired after all of the things that have happened under his leadership, from the targeting of parents at school board meetings to the targeting of Catholics. All the way down to the Hunter Biden laptop cover up and their collusion with Silicon Valley and on social media censorship. I mean, there's so much wrong you can't even where do you begin?
Right.
You know, so the idea that Christopher Wray should continue on into the Trump administration is a non sequitur. I know Dickie Durbin of Illinois, senator, I think he's now the number 2 in the Judiciary Committee with the seating in the next Congress, is saying that Kash Patel is an unqualified loyalist and shouldn't be confirmed by the Senate. I those two words in conjunction with Kash Patel are humorous if you can figure it out. What president appoints non-loyalists? Did Barack Obama appoint Eric Holder because he wasn't loyal to what Barack Obama thought?
Well, but that's different. See, those are Democrats.
and that's the point. I mean, the hypocrisy is just dripping off those words. You know, a loyalist. Oh, my, he's appointing someone who's loyal to him. How dare he? He's a Republican. He should have to appoint someone who's going to stand in his way and do our bidding. Come on. You're breaking the status quo here. I mean, that's ridiculous. And if that's what the Democrats are going to trumpet throughout the Senate confirmation hearings for Kash Patel, the country should be marching on Washington with torches and pitchforks.
Well, you know, yeah, you're exactly right. The whole thing is going to be played out like this is a political thing. You see, this is why we have these terms. And, you know, I get it why you have a 10-year term, but obviously it's not written in stone. But nevertheless, you have so much politics that's gone in to the DOJ and the FBI to try to get rid of Donald Trump for real. You know, and they're the ones now, the left is going to be saying, oh, this is all political. Trump shouldn't have, you know, his way on how he wants to start cleaning up this corruption is ridiculous.
Well, it borders on insurrection and sedition, what they have been doing. And then to say, oh, but you have to maintain that. You have to maintain this because, well, it's just what we do. No, we don't have to maintain that. As a matter of fact, I believe Donald Trump just received a mandate to make sure you don't.
Right.
This can't go on anymore. We dodge it. Victor Davis Hanson says it best in one of his last pieces. We dodged a revolution here. This whole far left Obama, Biden, Harris thing, we dodged a revolution in this country that was going to hijack it from any semblance of having fidelity to the Constitution to creating that socialist democracy that they wanted, where the popular vote would reign. And if they didn't like the way the popular vote went, then the ipso facto American Politburo would take over and just decide what it was going to be, all taking a knee to globalists' powers at the World Economic Forum. So we dodged a revolution here. And when they call Donald Trump a radical, or he's trying to do radical things, these things are extreme and radical. No, he's not. If anything, he's a counter-revolutionary. He's someone who's pushing back against this neo-Marxist revolution, and the people finally woke up in an election and said, you know what? We better get behind this guy before it's too late.
Right.
And now everybody's griping about his picks. These are the roadblocks we're going to see from these deep state operatives going forward. The uniparty does not want change, and they are going to try and thwart it at every step. So everybody who's hung over from the election in their celebrations of we won, we haven't even started yet.
Well, you're right.
We have got to keep the pressure on. This is not a time to pull back on the throttle. It's got to be even further forward. The pressure you apply to your elected officials and the screaming that you do in public about how we need to get back to the Constitution and the rule of law, it has to be louder, it has to be more cogent, and it has to be more convincing.
Well, and I hate to say, we're also in a very dangerous time, because of how, you got people raving on MSNBC, that's one thing, but you do have some very powerful people who, as you said, do not want change. And this is, it's a time of being prepared. It's a time of recognizing the danger. And I think it's a time for prayer, for safety, this kind of stuff.
Well, it's certainly time to identify and say with a clear voice who the villains are here. And the globalist community, from the Clinton Foundation down through George Soros to Klaus Schwab to Bill Gates, all of these people, these megalomaniacs who think they're so freaking important, and that everyone should just shut up and sit down and let them rule things because we're too stupid to understand what we need and want, those are the villains. These are the villains. This is who we're up against, and they've got trillions of dollars. They've got organizations like Vanguard and BlackRock in their back pocket. So this is not a time to be complacent. This is not a time to say, well, I can get to this after the Christmas holiday. If that's your mindset, then we will lose, because this battle has just begun. Yeah. And it's not going to be easy.
No, it won't. And you've also got, of course, Donald Trump, who's got to hit all these different fronts all at the same time. And it seems to me, Frank, the faster that he can get real change or reform, just for lack of a better term, the longer it drags on, the worse it would be. It's kind of like when these congressional elections drag on, and then, suddenly the Democrat finally won. It's like the longer it goes on, the worse it gets.
The left, especially the far left, are masters of delay, deflect, deceive, disjoint. So they will do hearings on everything. They will drag their feet bringing evidence. We see it every day. During the Biden administration, you'd have a congressional committee saying, we're subpoenaing you to come before Congress to testify, and they can't remember or there's an ongoing investigation, or I thought we sent those papers to you. I'll have to check into that. You know, if you're not cutting through the butter with a blazing hot metal knife, then it coagulates around what you're cutting with and it gets stuck. So, yeah, Trump has got to move quick, and this is ripping off the Band-Aid time. And, you know, like I said, the first time around in Trump 1.0, he should stop at Foggy Bottom and then the Justice Department and fire everybody from middle management up. Period. Dot.
Well, yeah, this is what Joe Biden told us over and over again. Nobody believed it, but that was the party line, as it were. And so, of course, all this stuff that could lead to the Biden crime family, is now kind of turned off with this pardon.
Well, it's status quo for Democrats. It's actually status quo for the uniparty. I shouldn't keep just pointing my fingers at Democrats. It defies logic that someone can go to Washington and make a 6-figure salary every year, and out of that salary have to pay for accommodations within the Beltway, which is astronomical to begin with. Just existing there is the cost of living is high. But then leave office, even after a 1 or 2 year term stint as a congressman or a 1 year stint as a senator, a millionaire.
Yeah.
Everybody gets their piece of the pie with the uniparty. And the higher you get up the food chain in elected office, the bigger the payout. That's what it's become. I'm absolutely not saying it's right, but I'm saying that's what it's become. You don't go in as Barack Obama, a 3/4 term U.S. senator, become president for 8 years and come out a multi-millionaire. And your wife become a multi-millionaire. So that you can have 4 mansions placed around the globe on what the president makes. It doesn't make any, the math doesn't work.
Yeah. And by the way, as far as I know, Frank, the sea has not risen at his, is one of his multi-million-dollar mansions, on the waterfront. It seems like I think the sea's staying exactly where it's supposed to. I don't think they're too worried about it rising up.
Yeah, I think Al Gore's out there beached. The children keep trying to drag him back into the water. But this is the graph that's happening. This is what the people sent the message for this election. We're tired of it. We understand what you did. We didn't like it, and we kept turning a blind eye to it because, well, we were just conditioned to believe that's just the way it is. But the Obama-Biden years pushed that throttle forward. The grift became something that was just insanely egregious, and we finally said enough. The game is over. The party ends now. Get out. And this is what we sent Trump back to do. That's why he's called a disruptor. We don't want the status quo anymore. We don't want Mitch McConnell anymore. We don't want John Thune doing what Mitch McConnell wants from the back bench, pretending he's not in control. We don't want Nancy Pelosi doing that on the left either, although she is. Mm-hmm. We want all of that to stop. And if that means getting rid of all of them and making sure that we disenfranchise the careerist staffers as well, not only in the executive branch, but the legislative branch, because that's who runs everything. New people come in, they don't know how to maneuver the hallways there, and it's always the staffer who used to work for somebody else who has now got a job with you, who still has the same connections, and whose connections still have them by the short hairs. So
nothing changes. Yeah, exactly.
Nothing. So a disruptor has to be an intense disruption, something that's going to be a little chaotic in the beginning, but that's okay. It needs to happen every now and then. And some might say that that's what Jefferson meant when he said the tree of liberty has to be watered with the blood of patriots and tyrants from time to time. It doesn't necessarily have to have the violent connotation that everybody takes away from that. But in this culling of what the deep state has become, some good people are going to get caught in the net. And to those people, I apologize, but you should have spoken up earlier.
Well, Jamie Raskin is out there saying that the deep state evidently just means anybody who doesn't do the will of Donald Trump. That's going to be the trope that we hear. Oh, they're just, you have to be loyal, blah, blah, blah. And if you're loyal, or if you really want to be the disruptor the way Donald Trump is trying to be, then somehow you're nefarious. But like you're saying, Frank, so rightly so, the American people voted for this disruption. They have had it with this.
Yeah. So if the American people decided to vote for a pirate, then pirates are in control now. That's it. That's the way this is. They lost an election, and as Barack Obama says, elections have consequences. And this time it wasn't that we left there wasn't any avenue to say, well, it wasn't legitimate because he didn't win the popular vote, and we have to change the Constitution just to make sure that we can always win because we love mob rule, or at least when we control the mob.
Yep.
No. You lost. Shut up. Sit down. Jamie Raskin and what he's trying to float with using the insurrection clause to prevent Trump from taking office is nothing short of insurrection, and he should be arrested and prosecuted for it. Donald Trump went on trial for inciting insurrection in an impeachment, the second impeachment. He was acquitted by the Senate. It's been adjudicated. It didn't happen. So by his insistence that we have to prevent a lawfully elected president-elect from taking office by bastardizing the Constitution, he is using lawfare to violate constitutional rights, not just of Donald Trump, but of every American who voted for him. And that is a crime. And he should be arrested for that and tried.
Well, the whole idea, of course, is to try to just invalidate any result that they don't like. And, it's really sad. It's kind of pathetic, but what you're describing, of course, is incredibly serious, because they really are trying to overturn then the results of a legitimate election.
Every single thing that they accuse their opponents of, they themselves are doing. It is Marxism. Karl Marx said it. Blame your opponents for what you're doing. That's going on the offensive. That's throwing all the Alinsky rules at it all at once and saying, I have fidelity to this, Karl. So, yeah. Like I said, we're surviving a revolution here. And there are going to be elements of this revolution that we need to keep pushing back against, where they would say, we have to put you into re-education camps. And remember, Hillary Clinton pretty much said it. And so did Robert Reich. And so did everybody on MSNBC. Anybody who's supporting Trump should have to go to a re-education camp. We don't want to send you to a re-education camp. We just want you to realize you lost. You lost.
Indeed.
And that means your way of running the game is over. And now it's time for you to either get with the program that the guys in the white wigs put together 250 years ago, or maybe you don't belong in office. And maybe the people that you quote unquote represent, the voters, your constituents, not the people who keep filling your bank accounts, maybe they should vote you out of office because the rest of the country's had enough. And as far as California and New York is concerned, you get the leadership you vote for. So if you're tired of it, vote them out of office. If you're not tired of it, you might want to look in the mirror and see whether you belong here or not.
Right. Well, of course, the idea too, Frank, is that the leftists, the Marxists, they truly believe that they have the right to dominate over everybody. And that's why they won't just simply say, okay, we lost, I guess we'll go home. They're always going to be looking for that angle to gain more power.
Unbridled arrogance.
You're listening to Underground USA.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is often laced into illicit drugs and used to make fake versions of prescription pills. You can't see it, taste it, or smell it. Suppliers mix fentanyl into their products because it's potent and cheap, and the dealer might not even know. Keep yourself and others safe by knowing the real deal on fentanyl. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com.
Who helped cause soaring gas prices? BlackRock. Who contributed to outrageous housing prices? BlackRock. BlackRock and Larry Fink spent years harassing oil and gas companies, making them divest from fossil fuels. Now you feel the pain. And BlackRock-owned companies are snatching up houses, crippling families. Now BlackRock's former ESG czar, Brian Deese, is Biden's economic advisor, crushing America from within. That's what BlackRock is really about.
If you like the podcast, head on over to undergroundusa.com and sign up for our Substack. It comes straight into your email inbox, circumventing the censors and the fact-checkers of social media. And please remember that the top Substacks are chosen for AI-generated search engines based on the number of likes and paid subscriber comments that shows engagement. Liking and commenting are always ways to show your support for our work. And lastly, with Christmas approaching, be sure to talk politics, current events, religion with your family, friends, colleagues, and acquaintances. When we have those conversations, we come to realize we have more in common than we do in difference. And when we realize that, the dividers of the deep state lose in their quest to balkanize us into malleable chunks of voters. They lose their power when that happens, and that is a good thing, right, Martha? You're listening to Underground USA. No fear, no wokeism, and no political correctness. My name is Frank Salvato.